In the last video, we were discussing how entrepreneurs think, and we covered the two bullets at the top. We said that entrepreneurs think structurally and that they engage in bricolage. So let's begin with the other characteristics of how they think. The third one is effectuate. This is as opposed to the process that people usually undertake that is called a causal process. In the causal process, a manager, for example, will select an outcome, a goal. And once he or she has done that, then they will procure everything that they need in order to get to that goal. Effectuate, on the other hand, requires a different thinking. It requires the person, in this case the entrepreneur, to look at what they have currently and then think of the possible outcomes that what they have could get them to. From there, they will select the outcome. Let me give you an example. Let's think of an entrepreneur. Let's call her Norma. Norma wants to start a venture. So what she does is she goes into her kitchen pantry and she sees what she has. She has flour, beans, cheese, and from what she has in her pantry, she decides what the possible outcomes might be for her takeout food business. So she thinks, well, I could make quesadillas, I could make sopes, I could make gorditas, and from those outcomes, she decides on one. Let's say that she will make sopes. By doing this, she has used the process of effectuation. As mentioned earlier, this is opposite to using a causal project. In the causal process, she would have said, I would like to make, for example, tacos al pastor. Thereby, she would have selected the outcome first. And then she would have proceeded to get everything she needed to achieve that outcome. By using the effectuation process, Norma was displaying an entrepreneurial mindset to adapt to changes, which takes us into the next point. Effective entrepreneurs continuously rethink every aspect of a firm's operation. But how does a person nurture the ability to adapt? There are 4 things that are important for a person to have this skill. Number 1 is to use comprehension questions. In the case of Norma, she would have thought to herself, what do I need? How much money do I have? What else do I need? What do I know in order to do well? How fast can I serve my product, and so on? Another thing that a mindset that is quick to adapt has is the ability to think about connection tasks. Connection tasks would be a list of things she had to do in order to quickly start her venture. Who's doing what? What are the steps to making the sopes, and so on? Strategic tasks would have been the tasks in the bigger picture, meaning who's my competition and what do I need to do to be better than my competition? Where should I place my business? What time should I start serving? What is the peak hour for my customers, and so on? Reflective tasks would have been questions that she asked herself and thought about, reflected on before she started even. So what have I learned in the past that I can use now? Also, after her first day of serving the food, what did I do well? What do I need to change? Reflective tasks are extremely important for an entrepreneur because they allow the entrepreneur to think about the things that they did well in order to continue doing them, but also think about the things that didn't go as well so that they can make changes about them. That way they keep on refining their product, their service, and that is how they eventually get to the right recipe for success. Now, in order for somebody to jump into an entrepreneurial venture, they need to want to do it, because more than likely they will be aware of the difficulties that the venture will entail. They know that at times things won't be easy. And like we discussed in the McMullen-Shepard model, they will need at some point before starting to assess the feasibility of their project as well as the desirability. Do I really want to get myself into this? Once they have assessed that, if they have made that leap into entrepreneurial action, then it is clear that their intentions are there. So, in other words, they don't start a venture by accident. It is intentional. Another thing that is critically important for entrepreneurs is self-efficacy, because even if they believe it is feasible and that they want it, they have to have this other element of self-efficacy, which means they have to believe that they will be successful. This, in turn, will affect how much effort they put into it. This self-efficacy, this belief that they will succeed, will keep them going, because they know deep down that eventually they will get to their desired outcome. And then, of course, perceived desirability is also important, and that is the attitude toward the action, the way that they look at what they're doing, thinking, I am where I need to be. That way, in Norma's case, for example, if she was in the kitchen and tired or having to wake up at 4 a.m. to go and get the products that she needed to serve her customers during the day, that would keep her going because she would be excited about it. Her attitude would be, this is exactly what I want. We could also discuss other characteristics, background, for example, of an entrepreneur. What about their education? Is education important? It is, but in this case, we're not limiting the word education to mean school education, because it could be that school is where they got knowledge, but people can also get knowledge by being exposed to different environments, by working different jobs. The important thing is that through a variety of experiences, the entrepreneur should be educated in the sense that they acquired skills and problem-solving abilities that they were later able to transfer into other jobs, into other experiences, and ultimately into their venture. Regarding age, there is not a specific age that an entrepreneur will want to begin. There have been cases of children starting their own ventures.
Mosiah Bridges, aka Mo Bridges. This is the founder and CEO of Mo's Bows. Mo's Bows is the largest handcrafted bow tie making company, and its humble beginnings were simply handmade bow ties sold on Etsy. Mosiah started his company when he was 9 years old because he wanted to do something to make himself look sharp, but couldn't find anything to match his personality. So he and his granny started making bow ties at her kitchen table in South Memphis. He's since released a book called Mo's Bows, A Young Person's Guide to Startup Success, and he has a range of face masks, bow ties, ties, and pocket squares available on his website. His dream is to become a fashion mogul, and he's well on his way to achieving that dream.
Generally, entrepreneurs will be between 22 and 45 years old when starting. But there is no limit because it all depends on their circumstances as well.
I'd like to take you back about 7 years in my life. Friday afternoon, a few days before Christmas 2009, I was the director of operations at a consumer products company in San Francisco. and I was called into a meeting that was already in progress. That meeting turned out to be my exit interview. I was fired, along with several others. I was 64 years old at the time. It wasn't completely unexpected. I signed a stack of papers, gathered my personal effects, and left to join my wife, who was waiting for me at a nearby restaurant, completely unaware. Fast forward several hours, we both got really silly drunk. So, 40 plus years of continuous employment for a variety of companies, large and small, was over. I had a good network, a good reputation. I thought I'd be just fine. I was an engineer in manufacturing and packaging. I had a good background. Retirement was, like for so many people, simply not an option for me. So I turned to consulting for the next couple of years without any passion whatsoever. And then an idea began to take root, born from my concern for our environment. I wanted to build my own business, designing and manufacturing biodegradable packaging from waste, paper, agricultural, even textile waste, replacing the toxic disposable plastic packaging to which we've all become addicted. This is called clean technology, and it felt really meaningful to me. A venture that could help to reduce the billions of pounds of single-use plastic packaging dumped each year and polluting our land, our rivers, and our oceans, and left for future generations to resolve. Our grandchildren, my grandchildren. And so now, at the age of 66, with 40 years of experience, I became an entrepreneur for the very first time.
Regarding work history, it helps if the person has had experience in many different jobs where they can get transferable skills, particularly in the areas of financing, product development, manufacturing, distribution, and marketing. It helps, but it is not a deciding factor, because if they really have the desire and they are reflective, then they could realize, I need to acquire this knowledge, or I need to partner with somebody who can help me in these areas. Which brings us to our next point, which is the importance of having a role model and support systems available. As you can see on your screen, I've drawn a pyramid. At the top is the entrepreneur, and the entrepreneur is being supported by a role model, a close network of support, and a professional support network. Getting a role model is important because the role model will act as a sounding board, and particularly if this mentor has had experience, perhaps they are not an entrepreneur, but they can share with the entrepreneur their own experience, which then the entrepreneur can take into account in order to make decisions. Regarding a network of support that is close to the entrepreneur, this is important, and it could be friends, it could be family, because they will provide moral support, which at various stages the entrepreneur will need very much. A professional support network is also important. So in the case of Norma, perhaps she belonged to the Association of Restaurant Owners in her city. This would be important because that would give her information on trends, information on other things that are related to her industry. And some networks are important because they will provide the entrepreneur with access to resources. They will be able to discover new opportunities, and also they might be able to trade their services or products for other things that they need. Last but not least, belonging to a trade association will provide the entrepreneur with a perceived visibility, meaning when they see other people that are doing what they're doing, they'll think to themselves, they're able to do it, so I know that I will be able to do it as well. So that in turn strengthens their intention. And like we said before, this is key to the effort that the entrepreneur will continue exerting. At the beginning of the first video, we discussed that the entrepreneur needs to identify an opportunity, which could be a product, service, or technology that has the potential for gain. Now, that gain does not necessarily need to be economic gain. It could also be social gain, or it could be both.
I ordered for idli sambar and the spoon is put in it. So as he was putting the spoon, I grabbed it from his hand, I ran my thumb on it, it was greasy. I took a sniff of it, it was already smelling of sambar. It's being reused. We know plastic has got so many chemical complexes in it, phthalates, chelates, bisphenols. These cause cancer, these leach into food, they don't biodegrade, but still we're using a whole lot of plastic disposable cutlery. Why are we doing this? Answer obviously is there is no alternative. Oh well, we have an alternative now. We come up with an alternative, and that is edible cutlery. Here there is no coating, in fact it is entirely nutritious. You can eat up the spoon. Delicious. It is made of jowar blended with rice and wheat without preservatives, just like dehydrated vegetables. Our product also has a very long shelf life of more than 3 years. In fact, you can even have a hot soup also. You can stir your sugar and have your tea. You can eat it up. You don't want to eat it, you can just throw it. It decomposes within 4 to 5 days.
विश्वास नहीं हुआ, पहले बार देखे तो लकड़ी समझी मैं, मगर गांव में स्टार्ट होके काम शुरू किया बाद साग में डाल के अपन खाए, बहुत टेस्टी रहता मैडम।
आपने कभी खाने के चम्मच के बारे में सुना है? आपको एक सैंपल देती हूँ। आप अगर स्पून को काटेंगे तो स्पून का फ्लेवर आएगा आपको। इसमें जीरा, अजवाइन, रॉक सॉल्ट, ब्लैक पेपर मिलाते हैं और इसको बेक करते हैं। तो आप जब स्पून खाते हैं तो सिर्फ स्पून नहीं खा रहे, आप एक ज्वार रोटी खा रहे हैं।
When it comes to financing this, I had to put the only asset that I have, which is the flat where I'm residing, as a collateral security. And then got the loan because there's no such technology. We are the first in the world. So the technology had to be created. I brought in this edible cutlery and trying to promote a market for millets and motivate farmers to move away from rice. Plastic is very cheap, true, but I can make it as cheap. I can, with volumes. And once when I get the volumes, I get on to the farmers directly and start procuring raw materials directly from the farmers, in which case my spoons will be as cheap as the plastic spoons. So now the cutlery is tasty, fun, nutritious and environment friendly. That's edible cutlery.
To conclude, today we have discussed the entrepreneurial mindset. There are things that you'd want to highlight from this chapter, and of course, if you haven't yet, make sure that you read the chapter. There are topics that I have not touched on. There's a particularly interesting topic that is being paranoid. So, are entrepreneurs a little paranoid? Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? So, what I will do next is I will start discussions on Blackboard, and I will ask you to participate in the discussions. Now, the quality of your participation, of course, I will be taking into account, right? So think about it, reflect on the question, provide a substantive answer that lets me know that you thought about it and that you are applying the concepts that we talked about, because that is what is going to strengthen your knowledge acquisition. And so think about it, reflect, tell me your logic, what are you thinking, and so on. All right, guys, that's it for this first chapter. Make sure that you start reading chapter 3, because next week we will cover chapter 3 and 4, 2 chapters. Okay, we're skipping chapter 2, so go straight to chapter 3. If you have any questions about any of the topics that we have discussed today, make sure that you reach out to me. I am available via email, and of course you can also text me. I am on a different time zone. I am 6 hours later. So whenever it is 8 p.m. for you, it's 2 a.m. for me. So that means that if you try to reach out to me in the afternoon, I will respond the next day. All right? I just wanted to make sure you knew that. And I wish you a good first week of class. And if you have any questions, reach out. Bye.